The fans going all out for America's 250th, dropping $250,000 in cash. Beginning Monday, you could win your share with $2,500. Listen for the keyword, enter it at KFAN.com starting at 8 a.m. and plan your ultimate U.S. adventure.
We're back 10:03 on a Wednesday morning. Dave Sinekin in for Paul Allen today. Brett Blakemore by my side. I don't know how much you're watching the NBA playoffs. I know you've gotten a little bit more into it in the last couple of years, correct? But you've only got so many hours in the day.
Well, I've gotten more into Wolves basketball.
Yeah, you're not glued to Game 5 Spurs Thunder necessarily.
Can we just talk about how the flopping has gotten to this point where I'm seeing it on social media of people just falling to the floor as soon as they get within 5 feet of somebody and calling an SGA and wearing an SGA jersey or whatever. And that's just where we are in the game right now.
If you spend your time, like I do as well, scrolling on TikTok or whatever your social media platform of choice is, your algorithm, if you're a sports fan, you'd be hard-pressed not to get a compilation video of mostly SGA, but some of his teammates are becoming really adept at it as well, flailing to the ground without any contact whatsoever. And it's not just OKC. You do see it from other teams, but the Thunder have made an art of it, and it is difficult to watch. It's not basketball. SGA last night ended up with 32 points, and he made 7 shots. He was 16 for 17 from the free throw line. He lived at the free throw line because it looks like he has been shot almost every time he's heading into some other defender. And it's why I think most of NBA fandom has turned against the Thunder. It's hard to find too many people cheering for the Thunder. What was a kind of good time, small market, look at how they built their roster story a year ago. Now that they're the defending champs and the way they are hustling the officials for calls it's not basketball, and it is difficult to watch. They did get the win last night to take the 3-2 lead over the Spurs, putting up 127, which is the most the Spurs have given up in the entire postseason. But they are more than just floppers. A night like last night where, SGA was not very good offensively, despite ending up, getting half his points at the free throw line and having 32, seeing them roll out these bench players who become stars whenever they're given the opportunity. They're down 2 of their best 6 or 7 guys last night in Jalen Williams and A.J. Mitchell. And here comes Alex Caruso again off the bench with 22 points. Here's McCain given a shot to start for the first time in his career in the playoffs, and he scores 20, most of them in the second half, 3 threes in the second half to kind of shut out the lights on the Spurs. They are an impressive collection of players and what they have built. And it's hard to take that away from them, but they're hard to watch. It is a difficult watch with the Thunder. And I think a lot of NBA fans are at a point where it's all right. I'm rooting for whoever they're playing right now, whoever it might be. Was not a good night for your guy, Wemby, who was just 4 for 15 from the floor last night and had 1 rebound in the first half. It's the second game this series where he has really not been a factor on the boards, which almost seems impossible. And I understand if you watch, so once they moved Isaiah Hartenstein onto him, the level of physicality he's enduring, I mean, some of it is, again, crossing the line. And I think it's impacting him a little bit. And, it's going to be interesting as his career evolves as the next big thing. How much weight can he put on? Should he put on to get stronger? Because we'll talk a little bit about Giannis and where he ends up and whether a team that looks to acquire him does it in large part to have a big-time defender who can be physical with Wemby. And Giannis is the kind of guy that can defend Wemby and is a big physical guy that could make life tough on him. And we've seen that to a small degree with the Wolves, who had a little bit of fun with Wemby a little bit, whether it was Rudy or Randall bodying him up a little bit, about a few moments of fun from a Wolves perspective, frustrating Wemby. Last night was another night where, again, he struggled, 4 for 15, and he skipped the media session after the game. Like, the media that was there waited like an hour for him to come out. He walked right past them, went to the bus, which is kind of a no-no. You are expected to sit down with the media after a game when you're a star like Victor Wembanyama. I don't think it's a good look. We've seen, a lot of stars do it. And maybe he just had nothing good to say and didn't want to get in trouble. But he'll probably get docked a little bit for not making himself available. He wasn't the only player that struggled last night. De'Aaron Fox was also 4 for 15. That's a guy that, as the Spurs look to the future, they may decide to move on from because they've got a couple of guards that have really exploded, young guards in Castle and Harper. But Fox, when he's on, can be a difference maker. He was not that last night. And so we go back to San Antonio tomorrow night for Game 6. And meanwhile, the Knicks just sit back and wait. Your Karl Anthony Towns-led New York Knicks, who have been the story of the postseason. I mean, I'll own up. You probably remember on In the Zone when the playoffs started, I tried to pick an upset in the first round. I took the Hawks over the Knicks, thinking this might be the year that the Knicks go bye-bye. And when they were down 2-1, I was feeling pretty good. They have not lost since. Since they trailed 2-1 in the first round against Atlanta, they have now a strong 11 wins in a row. And that's not even maybe the most impressive stat. Their average point differential in their win streak is 19.4 points. They are blowing teams out. So I find it kind of fascinating because, I, like many NBA fans, when the conference finals started, thought, all right, well, we're basically seeing the NBA finals here in the West. Like, the two best teams are the Spurs and the Thunder. We're going to kind of watch our NBA finals evolve here in the West, and then whoever emerges, we can basically just assume they are going to have a cakewalk against whoever they face in the East. Well, now, after what the Knicks have done the last couple weeks, there are those who believe the Knicks are going to be favored, regardless of who they meet in the finals. I have to say, I still find that shocking. I understand how dominant they've been. Reggie Miller said it last night. The Knicks are going to be the favorites in the finals. I saw a report, or an article this morning. Former Knicks coach Jeff Van Gundy, who may end up with a head coaching job this offseason, either in Portland or Orlando. He's a finalist in both cities. Van Gundy also believes the Knicks will be favored in the NBA Finals, and I could not disagree more. I mean, I am very impressed by what the Knicks have done. How could you not be? But I mean, they've beaten Atlanta, Philadelphia, and Cleveland. I mean, this is not, and I know that doesn't mean a ton to you necessarily, but this is not a murderer's row of teams that they had to get through. So I take nothing away from how they have dominated, and the way they have played offensively has been beautiful to watch. They kind of move Cat to a facilitator, point center almost, point power forward role where he is using his great passing ability more, not shooting threes as often as you typically see, and getting his guys involved. And so, obviously Jalen Brunson is the conductor and the star of this team. And I can't help but think of Mavericks fans who I saw a photo posted on Twitter yesterday of a photo from their team 2 years ago with Luka and Jalen Brunson, like they're two centerpieces of their organization. And neither one are in Dallas, and both are, although Luka obviously had the injuries this year, both have rather flourished since they left Dallas. But Brunson has been great in New York, and they've got, the Villanova guys around him. Ram Brunson is the fellow Wildcat, and the former Hoosier, Anunoby, along with Cat. I mean, they've got a really nice team. And so I don't want to disparage what they've done, but I just feel like they are leveling up in a big way, whether they face the Spurs or Thunder. I still think they're in for kind of a rude awakening, and I'm really curious, and I think it'll be the Thunder. Still, I imagine the Spurs have a good chance to force a Game 7, but I don't see a young, unproven in the playoffs Spurs team going into OKC in a Game 7 situation and winning. I could be wrong, but my thoughts are that the Thunder are going to advance. They did sweep the Knicks in their two matchups this year, and the Spurs and Knicks split. In fact, the Knicks beat the Spurs to win that NBA in-season cup deal. So, if the Spurs do advance, that could be a nice little rematch for a couple teams that played two really competitive games. But I'm of the opinion that OKC or the Spurs are both a more physical, more talented team than the New York Knicks. And while the Knicks, I assume, will give them each a good series, I'll be really surprised, A, if the Knicks are favored, and B, if they're able to win the NBA championship. That fan base is insufferable. Knicks fans, insufferable. I know it's been 27 years since they've gotten to the finals, but I'm already sick of them. I'm not going to root for them. Much as I don't root for the Thunder, I can't root for the Knicks. The only reason I would is because I know Double T will be very excited if the New York Knicks are to claim their first championship since 1972 or 3, whatever it was. It's been a minute. The Wolves, it feels like they're a ways away watching the Spurs and Thunder. Their lead honcho, Tim Connolly, has made it clear they're going to be aggressive to make moves. It has Wolves fans wondering who will be gone, how different will this roster look, and could the Wolves take a giant swing at a number of big-time, big-name players who might be available this offseason? When we come back, I'll give you 5 names that Wolves fans might be thinking about. Do any of them make sense? Are any of them likely? I'd love you all to weigh in via the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line, 64686. You can leave talkbacks on your thoughts as well. Head to the iHeart app, click on the microphone. You got 30 seconds to say your thing. Let's chat Wolves off-season next segment, and then at 10:30, 10:35, we'll welcome Chris Hine, who covers the Wolves for the Star Tribune, get his thoughts on the Wolves off-season and what he's seeing in these conference finals. We'll talk NBA throughout the rest of this 10 o'clock hour on The Fan.
You're listening to Dave Sinekin on The Fan.
From the 1-800-ASK-GARY Traffic Center.
Great shows, the Mystic Lake Amphitheater. Legendary Bob Dylan will be there July 6th. Motley Crue, August 21st. Santana and the Dewey Brothers, August 27th. Get complete details on all of our upcoming shows on the concert page, KFAN.com, keyword contest.
We're back, 10:18 on a Wednesday morning. It's the Paul Allen Project. Dave Sinekin sitting in today. Bottom of the hour, Chris Hine will join to talk Wolves off-season, NBA playoffs, and that kind of stuff. It will be I think, a very interesting offseason for your Minnesota Timberwolves. I feel like first order of business is let's extend Tim Connolly, get him a new deal, make sure the front office is squared away and set for the foreseeable future. They'll deal with their own free agency issues, number one being Ayo Dosunmu. Hopefully they'll find a way to keep him around, and he'll want to be here, and he'll be a part of this core. Connolly made it clear that, very interesting choice of words when he said he's very excited about his under 26 core, is how I think he put it. Sub 26 core, meaning the guys that are 26 years old or under, which means, look at the ages. You're talking about Ant, McDaniels, Nas, Shannon, maybe Berenger, and maybe Ayo as kind of the core guys going forward. Doesn't mean they're going to move on from Randall and Rudy and everybody else, but it sounds like those other guys are guys he wants to keep around. And if that's the case, how big a swing can you take if you're looking to keep a lot of those younger guys and hoping to move the older guys? That might mean you may have to settle for a second-tier kind of trade rather than a big-time one. But if they are going to take a big-time one, and we know that Tim Connolly likes taking big swings, he's kind of a power hitter that way. He'll swing and miss. He'll hit for the fences. He doesn't care. He wants to take the swing. And so, obviously, the biggest swing would be to resurrect the Giannis Antetokounmpo talks, because by all accounts, the Wolves were very much involved and in play trying to pry the Greek Freak away from the Bucks at the trade deadline. He is one of the 5 guys I've identified as big swings that might be available. The 5 guys: Giannis, Kyrie Irving, Ja Morant, Kawhi Leonard, and Zion Williamson, who Jace Frederick wrote about in the Pioneer Press yesterday as a guy he wouldn't be surprised or wouldn't be shocked if the Wolves sniffed around the Pelicans to part with their former number 1 pick. So do any of those guys move the needle for you? Would they be worth maybe blowing up the core of this team a little bit to bring them in? Giannis would cost you the most. I can't imagine a deal that Milwaukee would be interested in with the Wolves that did not include Jaden McDaniels. So if you're of the opinion that Jaden is now untouchable, and I think I am there. You know, Trent and I on In the Zone have talked a lot about this kind of a deal, and I think we've both said we'd be okay with moving Jaden only for a guy like Giannis, who is 31, and yes, is breaking down a little bit, you know, has not been available in the postseason. Well, certainly the Bucks were not a playoff team this season, but he didn't play more than 30-some games. They had no shot to be a playoff team, but the year before he missed the playoffs. So there is that issue where he has been hurt, but he is still unquestionably a top 5 player in this league. If you're looking to try to find a way to stop the size of the Spurs, and particularly Wemby, Giannis is a guy that's going to help you do that, and has the athleticism to move around with Wemby all over the floor. But he's going to cost you the most. He's going to cost you. You know, I wouldn't imagine would be McDaniels and Nas, but I think it's McDaniels and Randall and, you know, a couple of your young guys and whatever picks you could muster. Maybe a third team would have to come in to give the Bucks the picks they might want, because Milwaukee, looking at their future, because you have to look at their side too, they basically have no draft capital after bringing in Damian Lillard and making the moves they made to try to go all in to get a second title. They're going to look for picks in the future, and the Wolves can't offer them that. I still think Giannis is more of the pipe dream. I'd be surprised. I feel like there are other teams that might be interested in him, and if you're Giannis, who has said he'd like to play with Ant, he'd be open to that and be up for that. I think he has to look at the West and go, yeah, I'm happy in the East. Keep me over here. I'd like to try to win another title. I think the path is easier. One team that's really been connected with Giannis in recent weeks is the Miami Heat, who might have a combination of players and picks that might make Milwaukee excited, and I think Giannis would be fine playing there. So I think Giannis is the biggest fish, and I think maybe the most unlikely fish. So who's next? Kyrie Irving. I'm all in on Kyrie Irving. I think that would be so fun, and I understand he's 34, and he's coming off a torn ACL, but right before that injury, he was playing at an all-NBA level. He's a Hall of Fame point guard. He's exactly, you know, what this roster needs right now going forward. If we want to see Ant kind of move off the ball a bit, I think those two would be great together. It does come with some risk, whether it's injuries, whether it's age, whether it's chemistry issues, because Kyrie is an interesting cat. And, you know, when you blow up a team or make a big move, you worry about how the chemistry is affected. I'm less worried about that, because all I heard last year was continuity. We're going to keep this team in place. They love each other. They hang out together. They were here all off season together. This is a connected team that is going to grow together. And then all we heard after this season was, yeah, we were moody and we weren't like together. And some guys are worried more about their stats. And then there was some immaturity involved. So I'm kind of done with the chemistry thing. Let's put the best collection of players together and let them figure the chemistry out. I think Kyrie would be a terrific fit. I've seen a couple of trade scenarios where it might be a package where it might be something like Randall, Dante, and the pick this year, the 28th pick in the draft this year, and their 2028 number one, which they have. I would do that deal. And I hate to see Dante leave. I love everything about his game. But the reality is, he has 1 year left on his deal. He's coming off a torn Achilles. He's probably not likely to be available before, what, All-Star break at the earliest, March, April. I mean, you might get him, you know, for the end of the season and the playoff run, which would be wonderful. But he's also an attractive trade candidate in that he's making about $12 million, and he'll be a free agent. So, you know, he's coming off the books for a team that might acquire him. So if I'm offered Randall, Dante, and a couple ones for Kyrie, I'm doing that, because I still have Nas and McDaniels and Ant as my core, as guys that are going to grow together with this team. Whether Dallas wants to move on from Kyrie, that's, you know, the big question mark. They have a new guy running the show. And so we have no idea how he feels. He has said publicly that he sees a future with Flagg and Kyrie, but every GM is going to say something like that until a good deal comes along. So I'm all in on trying to make a Kyrie deal happen. I think the most polarizing figure that might be available via trade is Ja Morant. Steve in Florida just texted in. Morant is the only guy to bring in. They just need a point guard. Morant would be perfect for this current mix. Okay, perfect to me is going a bit far. I'm tantalized by the talent, offensive talent of Ja Morant. You want red flags? How much time do you have? There's lots of red flags here, right? We know about the behavior off the court, brandishing weapons on social media. He's been suspended by the league, by the team, has not been able to stay healthy, but he's young. He just might need a change of scenery. He might need an environment where some veterans, especially if a guy like Mike Conley is back next season, as he wants to be, and I think he will be for this team. You know, Ja with Conley, that might be a really nice mentor for him. But yeah, there are red flags with bringing a Ja Morant in it. But offensively, Ja and Ant, I mean, that's must-see TV. Now, on the defensive end, that's a whole nother issue. And he is not a good defender. And so you're going to have to try to mask that and figure out a way around that. But I don't know. I'm probably less enticed by a Ja Morant trade. However, I wouldn't be devastated if they bring him in because the offensive excitement level will be through the charts. And if he can grow up a little bit and kind of find a home in a change of scenery, that's as dynamic a backcourt offensively as you're going to find. Yeah, Ja and Ant. That's a lot of fun. And ESPN.com, I've seen a couple of trade proposals. One was Randall, Shannon, and Berenger. But my understanding is that kind of a package would put the Wolves up really hard against the cap, and they may not be able to sign DeSumo if they make a deal like that. And I believe it's a priority for this organization to bring Io back. Another trade I saw for Ja was but it was similar to the Kyrie deal. Randall, DiVincenzo, and the number 1 pick this year for Ja Morant. That's a big swing. There's a lot of things that can go wrong bringing Ja Morant to this organization. But, you're swinging for the fences here. You know, there is a chance it works out really well if he finds himself. The talent is inarguable. The last guy is Kawhi Leonard, who I think from a fit standpoint with Ant is spectacular. But with Kawhi, again, more red flags in a way. He's been injury prone, though he was very healthy and terrific this year. He's only got 1 year left on his deal. So he'd be a free agent after next season in his mid-30s. How excited would he be to be here? If it's a rental, are you going to give up a lot for Kawhi? Of the 5, I think it's probably the least likely. I would say he and Giannis, to me, are the least likely of those 5 guys. But from a pure basketball standpoint, not sure what you're giving up to get him, but pairing Ant with Kawhi, to me, is that's beautiful basketball, potentially. So I'd be interested to see if the Wolves have any interest in Kawhi. Am I missing anyone? Or is there any other big swing out there besides those 5 guys? Giannis, Kyrie, Zion, Ja, and Kawhi. Now, clearly, the organization can take a swing, for a DeJounte Murray, where it's not a home run swing, but it's a guy that might just fit really nicely. There are plenty of other guys I'm sure they're looking at. It just feels like an off season where they're going to take a big swing. That's what Connolly does. What does Chris Hine think? He follows this team a lot closer than I do. Do any of those 5 guys interest him? What else is on tap for this Wolves offseason? How's he enjoying the NBA playoffs? I have questions. Chris Hine has answers, and he's next on The Fan. Back with you, 10:35 on a Wednesday morning on The Fan. Dave Sinekin in for Paul Allen today with Brett Blakemore. Common Man program follows us at noon today. Talking NBA basketball, the Knicks await whoever comes out of the West. The Wolves offseason is just beginning, and I'm very happy to welcome Chris Hine, who covers the Wolves for the Minnesota Star-Tribune, has done so for quite a long time. He joins The Fan on a Wednesday morning. Chris, how you been, my man?
I'm good, Dave. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I was a little gobsmacked last night when Reggie Miller said the Knicks are going to be favored to beat whoever comes out of the Western Conference Finals the way they are playing. I was stunned to hear that. I was stunned to see Jeff Van Gundy echo that in a story I read this morning. Did you hear that? Do you agree with that? And I guess, bottom line, how surprised are you by what the Knicks have been doing these last couple weeks?
I don't agree with it, but I don't think it's going to be just rubber stamp whoever wins the Western Conference Finals as the NBA champion. I don't think you can ignore how dominant the Knicks have been throughout the last 10 to 12 games that they've played in these playoffs. And when you see numbers like that, the way that they're just methodically taking teams apart, I don't think you can ignore that. I think that was the assumption that we had for the first few weeks of this playoffs was, okay, it's Spurs Thunder once, the Wolves lost to the Spurs. But the Knicks are going to have a chance. And one reason I think they're going to have a chance is because they're sitting back now with a week to lick their wounds, get their bodies in perfect condition or as good as they can for the finals round. And the winner of Spurs Oklahoma City is going to be a little banged up coming into the finals with not as much rest. So I think even early in the series, I think the Knicks are going to have a bit of an advantage. And, that proverbial, if you could just steal one on the road and get home court advantage, you never know what can happen. I think whoever advances, I think it's going to be a good series. I would still favor the Spurs or the Thunder, but it wouldn't surprise me to see the Knicks put up a really competitive series.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was of the opinion that whoever comes out of the West was going to just have this cakewalk in the finals. Might not even be worth watching. Like, this is really the finals. And the Knicks have made you stand up and pay attention by what they have done. Not just winning, but blowing teams out and just seeing really connected right now. And I would hope that Wolves Nation is kind of backing Cat here and hoping to see him have a great finals and maybe win a ring. I'm sure some fans are bitter that he's no longer here and don't want to see that. But their fortunes changed a bit when they kind of started using Cat a little bit differently. And I, for one, am really happy for him and excited to watch him compete in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, you have to be happy for him as a Wolves fan, I feel like, because, he was very loyal to this franchise during some dark times, some really bad seasons. While, that was not a lot of his doing because the coaching staff was always changing, the front offices were always changing, and he, through all of that, said, I want to win in Minnesota. I want to build a legacy here. And it wasn't his choice that he ended up going to New York. I think you can only root for his success. He represented the franchise great. While he was here, he embraced Minnesota, loved living here. Everything that you would want out of a franchise player, he was it. And to see him over the last couple of seasons, the knock on him dating back to, that infamous Jimmy Butler year where Jimmy said, I can't win with these guys, referring to Karl-Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins. And now here's Karl on the doorstep of potentially winning a title. And he's been to 3 straight conference finals now, 1 with the Wolves and 2 with the Knicks now. So he has debunked the myth that he can't be a winning basketball player. And I think that's one of the best things that he's done for his career the last couple of years here.
The Western Conference Finals is a heavyweight fight from the epic Game 1 where Embiid was just in pure alien form to what we've seen now through the next 4 games. The Thunder now have a 3-2 lead, but the biggest talker seems to be kind of how unwatchable for a lot of fans the Thunder have become with the flopping, with the baiting the refs. How difficult for you is it to sometimes watch this Thunder team play? And is it a problem the way this series is being officiated from your standpoint? And how much has it taken away from the fact that we are watching 2 insanely talented young teams that look like they are set to dominate for a long time in this league?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess I just haven't been paying as much attention to the flopping in this series maybe as others have. But I will say, I think on the whole, I think this is the next thing that Adam Silver and the league should be looking at, because I think, over the last couple of years, they've tried, and you can argue whether or not the results have been good or not. They've tried to address load management and player participation because fans were complaining that players weren't always available. Now they're trying to address tanking, right? And I think this is probably the next issue that they should tackle, because I do think it reverberates throughout social media, older fans. I think the flopping and the perception of flopping is really one of the top things that grates on a lot of fans, no matter your generation, no matter who you are, really. I think a lot of NBA fans can join in unison and say, this is not the game that we should be playing. So at times, yes, it can be hard, but I think I watch the Thunder and I appreciate their defense. I appreciate, the way that Shea can manipulate a defense. So I appreciate other things about them. I don't hate watch them like a lot of other people do. But I also do think that having a villain in sports is a good thing. You need villains. You need good versus evil. You need somebody to root against. And I think that's good and healthy for the league when you have a team that is a villain. Think about the Patriots for so long with Tom Brady and Belichick in the NFL. People love to just tune in and root against them if they didn't have another interest in the game. So I don't think that, overall that the Thunder kind of turning into villains because of the flopping is necessarily a bad thing for the league as a whole.
It's bad for fans that they can't stand, as you say, and we talked about it earlier, it's in this age of social media where you can go on TikTok and see a clip, of 10 plays from a game where it looks like you've got to resuscitate a player who hasn't even gotten contact. He just falls on the floor. It's tough to watch that. So you're right. Social media has sort of amplified for fans what they are watching if you don't necessarily always see it in the moment. All right, we're talking with Chris Hine, who is the beat reporter for the Minnesota Timberwolves at the Star Tribune and has been for a long, long time. Does a great job chronicling this team. And now we're moving into the off season. And am I correct in assuming that priority one is a new deal for Tim Connolly? Is that something we might see early in this offseason, or do you think ownership allows him to start doing his thing first, looking at the free agent issues on his own roster and looking at what he has to do to change things up to make sure they stay competitive and relevant in a fearsome Western Conference?
Yeah, I haven't heard where on the agenda that might fall. I would expect it to happen at some point this summer that they will talk about that, with Connolly entering the last year of his deal now. We'll see kind of how it plays out. Sometimes those things, it's almost like we'll get it done kind of when we get it done kind of thing when it comes to executive contracts, and you don't really kind of worry or haggle too much over the details, and they eventually get done.
Yeah.
So I think first and foremost, there's a lot of draft prep that's going on right now. A lot of looking over film, scouting, things like that the Wolves are doing with the late first round pick, trying to figure out where deals are made. So just from that standpoint, when you think about how busy this next month is for the front office, it might be a thing where it's like, hey, let's get through this next month and then we'll worry about the details later.
It's been a few minutes since Tim Connolly has made an NBA-shaking trade. He seems to like to do that. He's done it to a very good effect, I believe, for this organization a couple of times since he's been here. And he made it clear that he's open for business. He wants to take a big swing if it's available. He's not going to be defined by it, but he is going to be aggressive to look to see what he can do to make sure his team is taking advantage as we move into Anthony Edwards' prime years. His 25, 6, 7 years are when most players are considered to be in their prime, and he's approaching that territory. So he very interestingly said he loves his, what did he say, the under 26 core, the sub 26 core. We know what players he's talking about. So how aggressive do you think he can be, will be? Do you think this roster will look substantially different when they head to training camp in September?
I would expect it to look different. Yeah, I would. I don't think you can sell the fans on running it back or largely running it back. You have to shake up, I feel like, the formula or the vision that you have for this roster in the age of the Thunder versus the Spurs. I think it's a different conversation to me if there were just one of the Thunder or the Spurs in front of you, because you could say, well, we're an injury away, or as long as we just get to the conference finals, anything can happen, things like that, right?
Yeah.
I think when there's two teams that are clearly in front of you like this, you have to really re-examine what it's going to take to beat both of them. What are the common themes that you've run into as you've gotten whacked out of the playoffs each of the last 2 seasons by each of them? And I think we've all kind of reverted back to, the need for a point guard, the need for high basketball IQ out there on the floor, limiting turnovers. And I think at the end of the day, you're also going to need good floor spacing and shooting. I don't think you can conceivably have Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert as your starting front court against these 2 teams specifically. And if that's the goal, is to get to the finals and win a championship, and these 2 teams are in your way, Randall and Gobert may be good enough to beat 90% of the league, but that remaining 10% is what is stopping you from winning a championship. So you have to look long and hard about how you want to construct your roster and your best lineups against these 2 teams. And I think this postseason and last postseason have shown you need a little different formula if you're going to take down these guys.
And if you ask Wolves fans who they'd like to see move off this roster, their number 1 name is probably Julius Randle, in light of how he played against the Spurs, in light of how he looked against the Thunder in the Western Conference Finals a year ago. He's kind of a maddening player because you see him at times, and certainly we saw him, bodying up Jokic in the first round and doing terrific work on both ends of the floor. But we also, I think, know what his ceiling is, and as you say, the fit. So, in your mind, is he maybe the most likely guy? And is there another team that looks at Julius Randle? Because it takes 2 to tango, Chris. I've read this somewhere. You got to find a team that's interested in bringing Julius Randle in. Is he the most movable guy, maybe the guy most likely as far as big names go to be off this roster as we sit here at the end of May?
Well, this is the conundrum, right? I think, when you talk about the front court, it's Julius and it's Rudy. Rudy has the most, I think, would have more trade value, but it's because you could see what Rudy does that's very evident to the defense when he's on the floor. Mm-hmm. And, that's the issue. You can see what Rudy Gobert brings and what a team that is maybe desiring to make a defensive leap next season, especially if it's in the Eastern Conference. Bringing in Rudy Gobert could help a lot of teams in the NBA, or at least a good handful of teams in the NBA could use him and his, kind of, as the Wolves like to say, a walking top 10 defense whenever he's on the floor. Julius, it's trickier. I've seen a little talk about this on social media, and I wonder how this is going to play out. Tim Connolly did mention how the new lottery odds might affect trades, the rules around that, being, a semi-competitive team is not the worst thing in the NBA moving forward right now, because that actually, kind of helps you get the most lottery odds, is kind of being in the middle of the teams that are out of the playoffs, right?
Right.
So having a Julius Randle on a team that is not, necessarily looking to be in the playoffs could be a good thing for that team to at least have a floor of wins that it's going to get on a nightly basis. So I wonder if there's how that might affect the trade value of somebody like Julius Randle, who in the course of a regular season will put up numbers, will provide value to a team on the offensive end of the floor. So I wonder how that's going to shake out. It's hard to say when everything is just so new right now.
Yeah, but that is a fascinating element. Like if you're a terrible, terrible team, you have less chance of getting a top 3 pick going forward. Once the league approves the new rule tomorrow, I believe, right, is when the owners are voting on the new 3-2-1. So yeah, that might impact how teams look at a guy like Randle. That is interesting. All right, let's address the elephant in the room, if you will. Giannis, who the Wolves, by all accounts, were very interested in trying to pry from Milwaukee during the season, around the trade deadline. It sounds like the Bucks are very open for business. I'd be shocked if he's still on the Bucks by draft time. If you listen to Jimmy Haslam, their new owner, he made it pretty clear. They want clarity before the draft, and the only way to have clarity really is to move him, because he's not eligible for a new contract till later in the year. Do you believe, as we sit here today, that the Wolves are still going to pursue Giannis, are still interested? And, would you do it? I mean, what's the fit look like if you feel like you're likely going to have to part with McDaniels, Nas, maybe? I mean, do you think they're open for business in the Giannis sweepstakes, or do you think their attentions are going to look in other directions?
I definitely think they're open for business. Anytime a name and a player like that is available to trade, they're going to be interested. It's just going to take a lot in terms of not only, what you're going to give up in a trade, but also, I don't know, convincing Giannis to come here, that he's going to want to come to Minnesota over some of the other destinations. And hey, listen, Giannis is a smart dude. He's probably looking at the landscape of the NBA right now and saying, why would I want to go to the Western Conference and go up against and go up against these two teams for the foreseeable future? If I'm him, I want to stay in the East. My pathway to getting back to the finals and winning a championship is much easier if I stay in the Eastern Conference as opposed to coming to the West. But I think the Wolves are going to be, like you said, open for business. They were at the deadline. They will be again. They tend to always be in business if they think they have a chance at landing a star player, like we saw with Kevin Durant, last summer, and the trade deadline before that as well. So, yes, I think, if you're looking to stop Wemby, Giannis is as good a bet to make as there is out in the league right now. So, that I think immediately puts you in that kind of conversation of having somebody that can stand up to the alien. Where the rest of the roster stands around that is a very good question. And, it's just something that it's hard to get a feel and a pulse for because we don't quite know what the market is. And honestly, you don't really find out what a guy's trade market is until a couple days before, a team has to make a move. And if they're setting this deadline of the draft, I suspect that we're not going to really hear what the market truly is until 2-3 days before the draft.
Yeah, you're probably right. Maybe they can convince Giannis that, hey, there's a good chance we're going to move to the East here in a couple of years when expansion happens. So just be patient, my man. You're only 31. We'll get you in the East eventually. It's okay. But I think you're right. I think he'd rather look East if he wants to win another title. Chris, I threw out 5 names as if Connolly's taking a big swing, if he wants to take a big swing, there are 5 names to me that fall into that big swing bucket. I might be missing a couple guys, but my 5 guys were Giannis, Kyrie Irving, Ja Morant, Kawhi Leonard, and Zion Williamson. Do any of those, if you're the president of basketball operations for the Wolves, do any of those guys, do you circle any of those names and say, that's the guy that would be the perfect fit to play alongside Anthony Edwards and the young core that this Timberwolves organization has right now?
I thought a lot during the playoffs what a healthy Kyrie could do for this team. To me, and it was just coming off of a serious injury, and maybe that's why he could be available potentially. But I thought of what he could do just from a creation standpoint, alleviating the pressure on Ant. In terms of ball handling and getting the offense moving, allowing Ant to play off ball a little bit more, where Ant can excel in terms of his 3-point shooting. I think that makes, that made a lot of basketball sense to me as I was watching this team struggle with the Spurs. Kawhi, listen, he had a fantastic year this year, and if you can get that version of him moving forward, that'd be a pipe dream of a trade to make. To me, Ja Morant and Zion are on a lower tier than the guys you mentioned there because they are kind of depressed assets, so to speak. You're taking a gamble. They both come with significant risks, especially in terms of their availability and how often they've played games over the last couple of seasons. And, that is a risk. Obviously, I think both can make sense for the Wolves from a basketball standpoint. I think, Ja, while not as, good of a shooter as Kyrie has been, obviously you see the electric ability at point guard. He would take pressure off of Ant as well. But defensively, how is that going to look? Does he have enough shooting that people are going to have to respect it in the playoffs? Zion, not much of a shooter, but there is really no player like him in the NBA when he's rolling. And he did have one of his more available seasons of his career this year. I just don't know how that's going to look spacing wise, especially if you end up keeping Rudy Gobert as part of the future to get a player like Zion. So we'll see. To me, just, pure basketball sense, Kyrie would make the most sense.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's the top of my list as well. We know this. It's going to be a more interesting offseason for this organization, I think, than last year, right? No more continuity. It's time to shake things up a little bit and try to compete with the big boys in the West. Before I let you go, the calendar's about to click to June. Father's Day is a few weeks away. A wonderful gift for your Timberwolves loving father is the book you wrote, a biography on Anthony Edwards called Ant. We've talked about it before. I read the book cover to cover, learned so much about him, his journey, and I know it's still available wherever you buy books. Tell me what it's been like now, a year or two since the release, any kind of feedback you've gotten from Ant and his stable of people close to him, how they've thought about the book and some of the feedback you've gotten from around the world about this book you wrote.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been about a year since it came out. It's been about 2 years since I began the process of writing it, and it's crazy how fast time has gone by. I've loved to hear feedback, especially when I've done a couple book events. People coming back to buy copies for friends, family members as gifts, and telling me how much they enjoyed it. It's been really heartwarming to hear because it was not an easy process to get it done, and it was very rewarding to see it out in the world. I've heard from a lot of Ant's people; they love it. One of his people told me, he's like, I read it on a plane, or a lot of it on a plane one day, and he's like, I was sitting there laughing and crying at the same time. The flight attendants were looking at me funny, things like that. So that was a great compliment to hear. And really, I think what I've been most encouraged by is the first half of the book. You learn, before Ant ever sets foot in Minnesota, you learn a lot about his life in Atlanta and the people that helped him get to where he is today. And I wanted a real sense of community to come through the book because I think it's well known that he lost his mother and grandmother to cancer when he was 13 years old, and the people in his life that stepped up and made sure a 13, 14-year-old kid got to accomplish his dreams, I think is a really touching story. And I think a lot of people garnered that from the first half of the book, which I was really happy to see. Yeah, that was my biggest takeaway a year later after reading it, is just the support system he had after the tragedies in his family to make sure that he was going to the best possible places to grow, and what it took, the hours-long drives to practice and making sure he was getting things done, eating correctly, and getting to the opportunity to learn from good coaches. He had a really nice support system in light of what had happened to his family, and you really illuminate that so well. It's really an enjoyable book. I encourage anyone that loves Ant, loves this team, to find this book for the father, son, whoever in their lives, because it's a great read. And Chris, available in bookstores, online, right? Anywhere. You can't miss that orange cover. It jumps out at you, right? Yep, appreciate that. Yeah, I think locally around Minnesota, you go to a bookstore and they all pretty much have it. But you can order online as well, whether, from a big retailer or if you want to support independent bookstores around the area, you can order from them as well. Fantastic. Have a great off season. Enjoy chronicling whatever this team does over these next couple months. It's going to keep you busy. It's a 12-month job. We'll enjoy your coverage. Keep it up, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon, Chris. Thanks for your time today, my man. Appreciate it, Dave. Thanks for having me on. You bet. Chris Hine, read his stuff at the Minnesota Star-Tribune, or read his book, as I said, Ant, available where books are sold. Let's turn the page. Top of the hour, one more guest. That's Lavelle E. Neal the third. We'll talk some Twins. We'll talk some Bears and Pack. I'll let he and Brett opine about the World Cup a little bit. Lobble joins on the other side on The Fan.
You're listening to Dave Sinekin on The Fan.
From the 1-800